I'm going to try to keep this class to about 30 minutes because I know a lot of you are here on your lunch break or you have other places you need to be. And some of this is going to be a rehash from what I've talked about before with regards to budgeting. So I'm going to try to keep it short, but we may run over a little bit. If you have to leave, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Just jump up and leave, and remember that it will be videotaped. The link will be out on the website. We're going to talk about financial goal setting, and I've got on here on my slides that we're going to talk about goal setting for 2017. And the reason that I'm going to go ahead and talk about 2017 is because here it is, November the 16th, 38 days away from Christmas. If you didn't realize that, let me say that again, 38 days. If you haven't started your Christmas shopping, you better get started. I have not bought the first Christmas gift, not one. So I'm, preaching to myself really. But 38 days. So if you haven't started saving for Christmas, if that is one of your goals, it is a very short-term goal. You have 38 days to save that money. That's a lot of money that you need between now and Christmas. So we're going to go ahead and talk about New Year's resolutions. Except I'm not going to call them resolutions because everybody knows that when you make a New Year's resolution, you never keep it. So we're going to set some goals today, and I'm going to count on you all to keep these goals and to accomplish these goals. So we're going to talk about goals for 2017. I've got some handouts for you here. If you didn't get a copy, let me know. John has got some more. Some of these forms, I'm going to ask you to do some homework for me. But on this first form, I want you to take a look at it. It says, My Goals Activity. And I'm going to talk about 3 different types of goals. And Cooper, my presentation just disappeared for some reason. I have no idea why. But I'm going to talk about 3 types of goals. And in my slides, I've only got 2, short-term and long-term. So I want you all, as I'm talking about this, I want you all to think about what your short-term goals are. Short-term goals are things that you want to accomplish within the next 3 months. So I've already mentioned Christmas. It's here, it's 38 days away. That is obviously a short-term goal for all of us to get our Christmas shopping done. But I want you to think about some other short-term goals you may have. You may want to send some money to charity before the end of the year. You may want to do some other things before the end of the year. So December 31st will be here before you know it. Let's see, short-term goals. You may go ahead and file your income tax return in February, let's say, and you may get a refund. So that's a short-term goal that you need to think about. What am I going to do with that income tax refund? Long-term goals, I'll talk about those in a second, and I don't have it in the slide, but medium-term goals are those goals that you want to accomplish 3 months to 1 year from now. I personally think of anything within a year as a short-term goal, but for financial goal setting, we're going to consider anything less than a year, from 3 months to a year, we're going to consider those medium-term goals. One of my medium-term goals is that I have a daughter that's going to start college in August, which is so scary because I am too young to have a daughter starting college. But unfortunately, I do. She's graduating in May, so we've got lots of expenses related to that, and she's going to college. So by now, I hope that I have enough money saved up for her to go to college, and hopefully she'll get some scholarship money. But between now and August, I've got to make sure that she's going to be set. Long-term goals. Anything that you want to accomplish a year or more from now. So, retirement. That is one of our goals. I know everybody in this room wants to retire someday. So, see Steve. He will help you with your retirement. That is a long-term goal that you can get some help with today while he's here. Or some of you may have gone through open enrollment and decided to start putting money in the 403B. Those are long-term goals for us. So I want you to take just a minute And since we're videotaping this, I'm not going to give you too long, but I want you to take just a minute and I want you to jot down 1 or 2 goals on here. Short term, medium term, long term. Some of you may want to take some time and think about this. As I mentioned, January's coming up. You may have those New Year's resolutions or goals that you want to accomplish. So just take a moment. I've mentioned a few of mine. I would like for it to be a short-term or medium-term goal, but paying off debt is one of my goals. And so some of that may be short-term, some of that may be longer-term. Probably for me, it's going to be longer-term, but I'll get there. Some of you may have kids that are going to college too. That may be a long-term goal. A short-term goal may be just putting money aside for your emergency fund. If you don't have an emergency fund, I'll just go ahead and tell you right now that it is going to be really hard to accomplish your goals if you don't have an emergency fund. Because what happens is you start saving money for, I don't know, let's say a vacation next spring. And then all of a sudden you have to put a new set of tires on your car. So that vacation that you wanted to take in April now may have to wait until June or July. So if you don't have an emergency fund to deal with things like that, it's really going to hamper your goal setting ability or your goal accomplishing ability. So make sure you have some money set aside for emergencies. I consider emergencies things like home repairs, car repairs, things that happen that you have to fix immediately. Steve may have some other ideas on what those emergencies might be, but those are the types of things. When I say I have an emergency fund, in my mind, I sort of define what those emergencies are. And that way I don't touch the emergency fund if it's truly not an emergency. Maybe medical expenses, things like that. But you need to have an emergency fund. If you have an emergency fund, it also eliminates you feeling like you need to use credit cards when you have an emergency. Because some of our goals may be to get out of debt, and when we have emergencies and we have to use those credit cards, then you're just racking up even more debt. So, emergency fund. All right, you all have your goals written down? Some of you? Okay. All right, so I'm going to challenge you for a moment to look at those goals, and I want you to look at the second page in your handout. There's a little spreadsheet here. I love spreadsheets. I'm an accountant by background, so I love spreadsheets. You all may hate them, but I'm a big nerd, and I love spreadsheets. So I'm giving you a little spreadsheet to use. This little spreadsheet is for your use so that you can make your goals SMART. And when I use the word SMART, that's an acronym for the things that you see up here on the screen. For example, you want your goals to be very specific. I mentioned vacation. If I say, well, I want to go on vacation next April, what does that mean? That's really vague. So what I need to do when I'm writing down my goal for vacation is I want to go to Disney World in the spring. And it is going to cost me $5,000. Now that's a lofty goal. I would never do that. But that may be a goal of yours. So you want to write down that goal, and you want to be as specific as possible about what that goal is. If you just say, I want to go on vacation next spring, it's really hard to calculate what you're going to need to accomplish that goal. And it's going to be hard to measure that. So you want to be as specific as possible about what it is that you're wanting to accomplish. You want something that you can measure. So if I say I need $5,000 by April, then I want to be able to see that I'm going to have X amount of hundreds of dollars by December, January, February. I want to be able to measure that every single pay period or every single month that I'm trying to get to that goal. I want an attainable goal. So for me, going to Disney World is probably not attainable because I have 2 kids plus stepkids and a granddaughter, so $5,000 would never cut it. But I want to pick a goal that is attainable. Maybe that might be going to the beach in a condo that a friend of mine owns and eating in the kitchen there and cooking every meal instead of going out to eat every meal. So you want to make sure that it's something that you can accomplish. If you set goals and you never accomplish them, doesn't that just make you feel like a big fat failure? It's like being on a diet and you see the scales move a little bit and you get really excited when you've accomplished that you lost 2 pounds, even though you have 10 pounds to go. So I don't know, there's just something psychological about that, I think. If you can accomplish those little milestones, it makes you feel like you can really accomplish something big. So make sure that they're attainable. You want to make sure that your goals are relevant. So, okay, so let me give you an example. I mentioned that my daughter's going away to college. Well, let's say that my daughter's already graduated from college and I don't have to worry about that anymore. So there's no point in me making a goal or setting a goal to set aside money for her to go to college if that's not relevant anymore. Or maybe me retiring in a few years is really not relevant right now because I still have 20 years to go before I retire. Maybe I don't need to focus on that as much as paying off my debt right now. So you want to make sure that your goals, especially those short-term goals, are relevant and time-bound. So there's a column here that says achievement date. You want to make sure that you have set a target date to meet those goals. So if I want to go on vacation in April, there's my date, April 15th. I want to have X amount of dollars saved up. And that way I can measure up to that point. If you don't set a target date, then it's kind of like you're just floundering around. I'll put a little money aside here and there. But you never really get there because something always will come up, right? So make sure you set a date. So I'm going to let you do that for homework. You've written down your goals. I'll let you fill in your little spreadsheet after you leave here. You can take these with you. And these will be posted on that website too. And that way you can print off blank copies if you need them. Okay, so this is a little bit of a rehash from the first class that I did on budgeting. But if you hear nothing else that I say today, that is that you cannot accomplish any financial goal that you have written down without knowing where your money is going. So, on the next page, I think it's the next page, yep, there's a form that says Spending Leaks Activity. So for those of you who did not come to the budgeting class, get online, look at the video about budgeting. I don't want the word budget to be a scary word for you. I love budgeting. I have a budget every month with a big fancy spreadsheet. I keep track of every dime that I spend, but not a lot of people do that. And a lot of people are scared of a budget because it just sounds scary. Spending plan sounds a little bit more manageable, a little bit more positive to a lot of people because it's not so finite. It's a plan, but you know, you can change your plans, right? So if you don't have a spending plan, you are never going to accomplish any of your financial goals because you have to know where your money's going. Or then you turn around and wonder where it went, right? All right, so if you need tools or spreadsheets or any kind of budget help, I'm always willing to help you with that because, as I mentioned, I'm a big nerd and I love budgets. There are apps that you can get on your smartphones. There are software programs that you can use to budget. All kinds of forms out there on the internet. It doesn't have to be complicated, but you need to know where your money's going. And if you don't know that today is a good time to start tracking where your money's going. So For example, if you go by Starbucks every morning and get a $5 cup of coffee, maybe that's something that you could eliminate and you've saved $5 every day. Well, think about how $5 can add up. $5 times 30 days a month is $150 that you could have in your pocket towards your goal, whatever it is. So if you don't know where your money's going, start keeping track of it. This little form just gives you some ideas about where your money might be leaking. So I mentioned coffee. That's the first thing on the list. Dining out, that's a big one. If you can stay home and cook or plan your meals during the week instead of eating out or just running by the fast food drive-thru. Excuse me, I'm kind of out of breath. But anyway, if you can do that, you might save just a little bit of money. And you can take that money and tell it to go into your piggy bank for your goal. Some other ones on here, I don't see it on here, but I'll tell you a big one, is gym memberships. Now, I'm not going to say anything negative about the lift because I'm a member of Lyft and I love it and I encourage you all to go. But if you have other gym memberships here in town that you've had for years and years and years before the lift was even built, and that money's automatically coming out of your checking account every month and you're just too lazy to go by there and cancel the gym membership, that's a big expense per month that could go towards something else. One that I'm guilty of is getting my nails done. Well, you know, maybe if I would do my own nails, then I could save a little bit of money per month instead of going to the nail salon. So that's on here. DVD rentals, maybe instead of the movies, you get a DVD and sit at home and eat popcorn at your house rather than spending $10 for a bucket of popcorn at the movie theater. So anyway, just some ideas for you to think about, things to jot down. If you realize that you're spending a lot of money and your money's just kind of leaking away little by little, these are great tips to be able to find where that money's leaking. And you can take all of those leaks and maybe plug the hole where you're trying to accomplish your goals. Any questions for me so far? Any ideas where your money's leaking? You all are like, I know where my money's leaking. I know, I'm just not going to say it out loud. Clothing, I'll tell you, one of my weaknesses is clothing, shoes. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. But, you know, I probably could hit sales more often or go to Goodwill every now and then instead of, you know, shopping online like I do. So Keith said, my husband says that every day when he gets home there's a box at the door. So that's not good. I hate to shop. I really hate to go shopping. So I do like to shop online because I don't have time to go shopping. So when I get home, it's just right there, you know. So my money is leaking to Amazon and all of these other online sites. Okay, enough about my confessions. If you watch the videos online, you'll notice that when I teach class, it's like confession time for Amy. So I expect you all to keep me accountable as I'm trying to tell you all what to do. So y'all can help me. Okay, so I mentioned spending plans, you know, can be flexible. They need to be flexible. You know, what I spend this month may not be exactly what I know I'm going to have to spend in December. I know that Christmas is on December 25th every single year, so I know that I'm going to have to do my Christmas shopping in December. January, my budget may look completely different than it does for December. So you have to be flexible. And you have to be flexible about things that come up during the month that you haven't prepared for. So I even have a line item in my budget that's just for miscellaneous because I know that there's going to be something that I did not remember. So it just helps take that pressure off of you when you are trying to plan. Then you don't feel like, oh, well, I've blown my whole budget this month. I might as well just forget about the whole thing. You know, it just helps you with a little bit of flexibility there. They do take time. It takes time to track your expenses. It takes time to look at those bills and try to figure out what date you need to pay that bill versus that bill because you don't want to incur late charges. It does take time, and it's not always pleasant. Some people, especially couples in a relationship, sometimes the husband is very detail oriented and the woman is a spender and she doesn't want to deal with all that detail, or vice versa. And so that can create some conflict, but it's really important that you take just a little bit of time every month. And if you need help with that, I am more than happy to sit down with anybody. I'm sure Steve and his colleagues are more than willing to help too. So, just my final note on spending plans. You shouldn't have any money. When you look at your spending plan for the month and you look at your income and you subtract all of your expenses from that, there should be no money left over in that budget that you haven't told it where to go. For example, let's say that if I have $200 left over in my budget every month, if I don't tell that $200 where to go, then I'm going to blow it. I'm going to spend it on getting my nails done or ordering stuff online or whatever. But if I say, okay, Amy, I have $200 every month extra, I'm going to put that aside for my vacation in April. Then I've told it where to go. I can put it aside in my savings account. Automatically saving from your paycheck is a great way to accomplish your goals. So if you know that you're going to want to save $50 per pay period for a certain goal, let's say it's for Christmas, then you can have payroll go ahead and automatically deduct that from your paycheck and put it into your savings account rather than your checking account with the rest of your check. You never see that money. You know it's going over there. You're not tempted to spend it. So that's a great way to just pay yourself first or accomplish some of these goals first. All right, so enough about spending plans. I'm not going to beat a dead horse. But like I said, if you need help with that, I've got tools. I've got all kinds of little nifty spreadsheets and ideas about how to create your spending plan. I've talked about your spending leaks, but when you're creating your spending plan, it's a really good idea to sit down every month with your bills as they come in the mail or with your husband and just write down where all your money's going. And I think that if you haven't done that before, you will be astonished at the amount of money that you're spending that you didn't even realize you were spending. For example, your cable bill or your mobile phone bill. Sometimes you can look at that and go, why am I paying this much money for cable when I'm never even home in the first place? So it's really eye-opening to see where all of that money's going, and it doesn't take much to add up. So Keith and I had this conversation this week about the cable bill. He said, you know, our cable and internet bill is almost as much as the utility bill every single month. And I said, you know what, get rid of it. Of course, I don't think he wants to get rid of his SEC network and ESPN and all that, but I could live just watching WBBJ and I would be perfectly content. I'd rather just binge watch Netflix or something if I'm going to sit at home. But I don't think Keith could live without his football. But that might be an area where it would be really easy to cut that expense out. Sometimes, if you can't find anywhere to cut, maybe you just want to increase your income. Some of you may have some hobbies or some other talents. You may have a second job. There are lots of other ways to increase your income rather than reducing your expenses. So I've got some little ideas on here on this last page of your packet too. Have a yard sale. I know my house is filled with junk right now that I could sell. Facebook, these groups like there's one, Jackson and Medina used furniture. I see stuff on there all the time that I would never even think about posting, but then I'm like, why do I not go through my house and post some of this stuff that I never ever use? ThreadUp is one that I've mentioned before in some of my classes. It's an online consignment program where they send you this big bag and they pay for shipping, and you just go through your closet and fill it up with stuff that you don't wear anymore, and they send you money for it. It's like Goodwill, but you get paid to send your clothes to them. So it may not be but just a few dollars, but you know what? It's a few dollars towards your goal more than what you had before. So quick, easy ideas. Doing seasonal work. I was having a conversation in the hallway just earlier today. I was talking about making pies because I made a pecan pie last night, and I'm making 2 chocolate chess pies tonight. And my friend that I was talking to said, you know what? If you decide to quit working here, you should just go into business baking. And I went, you know what? Some days that sounds really, really nice. I could do that if I thought I could make any money doing it. So, you know, seasonal work, it's the holidays, people need people to bake for them. Other seasonal work like lawn care. So just ideas about how to get out and make a few extra dollars without a lot of investment, right? All right, so just a few things, just a few ideas to get your brain thinking when you sit down with that budget and you go, ooh, yikes, my expenses are more than my income. What am I going to do? Well, cut your expenses or increase your income. Those are your only choices, really. All right. Oh, here's an example of a spending plan that you can use, or like I said, I can send you some additional tools. This particular example has got pay yourself first on it. So that's what I was talking about, having money automatically deducted from your paycheck to go into your savings account. Go ahead and just pay yourself first, and that way you never miss it. And then you're just left with the remainder to work on all your expenses. A few items here that you might not think about. School supplies. If you have kids that are in school, I don't know about your kids' schools, but it seems like every week I'm getting a note, send $5 for this, or send $10 for that, or $30 for this field trip, or whatever. I don't often think about those in my budget because I don't know when those things are going to take place. But that's why I've got that little extra line in there. It actually, in my budget, says miscellaneous/girls because I have 2 daughters. Because I never know when they're going to go, I need $5, I need whatever. So I try to have a little flexibility in there. Now, I've already mentioned the negative cash flow. If your expenses are more than your income, you got a problem. You're probably either using credit cards to cover the shortfall, or you're not paying some of your bills timely, and so you're never going to be able to accomplish those goals until you get that in balance. I've already talked about reducing spending, increasing your income. Here's some more ideas. Babysitting. We don't have a lot of dog walkers in this community, but you know, you might be able to do some dog sitting or boarding. House sitting. I've already mentioned garage sales. These are just some general guidelines for what your budget should look like as far as the proportion of your income that's going to things like housing and utilities. I used to, many years ago, I used to work in mortgage loans. And if your house payment was more than 25% of your gross income, you didn't qualify for a mortgage at the bank where I worked. So that's just a good rule of thumb about, you know, what price house you can afford. I probably spend a little bit more money on clothing and personal than I should. I've already confessed that. Transportation, your car maintenance, your car insurance, gas. Don't forget about maintenance and insurance on your vehicle, because that's an expense that you're going to have every single month. Well, and on maintenance, you might not think about it every single month, but you know, every now and then you got to have tires, you got to have oil changed, that kind of stuff. I've already mentioned that there are apps, there are computer programs. Some of you might just want to use cash. Dave Ramsey promotes the envelope system, where you've got an envelope for groceries every month, and you've got a certain amount of money that's in that envelope for groceries, and when you get to the grocery store, if you go over that amount, you just don't buy it. So you might just want to use cash. It takes, when you're using credit cards and debit cards, there's really not a lot of emotion attached to that swiping. But when you have cash in your hand, and you've got a $100 bill, let's say, and you go to Starbucks for that cup of coffee, it's really hard to break a $100 bill for a cup of coffee, right? So, I don't know, there's some kind of emotional attachment to our cash for some reason, and it becomes a lot harder to spend that money when you can actually see it and hold it versus just swiping your debit card. I've already talked about that a little bit. Large purchases, most likely large purchases are going to be things that show up in your long-term goals. For example, a car, a home. So you might want to include those things in your budget. Let's say January 1st rolls around and you think, you know what? My car's got 200,000 miles on it. It might be time for me to think about getting a new car. So go ahead and include an amount in your spending plan every month to just set aside for that particular goal. It may take you a couple of years to have enough built up to buy a new car, but you can just drive your car till the wheels fall off, and then you've got some cash saved up instead of having to finance the car. All right, so you've heard me preach about the spending plan, or the budget, if you will. So if you don't have one, that's one of your homework assignments, is to go home today and start tracking where your money's going. I promise you that you will be shocked at how much little extra things in your budget are taking away from you being able to accomplish your goals. All right, so emergency fund, what are your goals? Eliminating the spending leaks that we've talked about. And y'all may have some other ideas about where your money is leaking out. Utility bills are a really good one too. It's been interesting. Keith and I just got married in August, and I'm one of these people that walks in the door and flips on every light in the house because I like it to be light in the house, and my daughters are the same way. Well, when Keith and I started dating, I noticed that he literally walked behind me from room to room and would flip off the light switches. It drove me crazy. It has driven me crazy. But I have finally realized that when he does that, he is saving us money. So where our utility bill, and by utility bill I mean our JEA bill that has everything in it. So our utility bill used to be about $500, round numbers. This past month, it was $300 and something. And I was like, yay, I'm freezing to death in this house, but we don't have the heat running. And I can see that in my utility bill. So I was really excited, even though I'm walking around in flannel and socks and, But a great way to look at reducing some costs there. Make sure you adjust. For example, if you decide that one of your short-term goals or medium-term goals, maybe that vacation needs to wait a little bit longer. Maybe I can go next year on that cruise rather than this spring. So be willing to make adjustments if you need to, and don't feel like you're failing or you're not accomplishing your goals if you need to make adjustments. So this is a fluid process. It's a work in progress. So don't feel like you're just married to your goals once you write them down. Okay, so you've got your little tools there. You've written down some goals. I want you to spend some time. This is part of your homework too. After you figure out what your spending plan looks like, I want you to figure out, what do you have to do to begin accomplishing those goals. For example, I have 38 days till Christmas. if I save $10 a day, I will have $380 for Christmas. $10 a day is a lot, though. How am I going to cut $10 out of my expenses between now and Christmas? But you need to figure that out, and you need to write it down, and you need to hold yourself accountable. And I'll tell you another thing that will hold you accountable is if you tell somebody. So if I look over here at Chris and I say, okay, in 2 months, I'm going to have $500 saved up, and I want you to help me. It helps you to be accountable. It's like when you go to the gym and you have a workout partner. So it really helps that you've got somebody else that you're sharing in that common stress or, common work. So that way I can say, hey, how are you doing on your goal next month? And he can say, well, I'm doing great. Have you reached your $500 yet? And that way you just have that extra layer of accountability. How are you going to measure it? Well, it's easy when you make it specific and you say, I'm going to have $500 by such and such date. Either I do or I don't. And I know that if I've only got 2 months, then I'm going to have $250 at the end of that 1 month in order to get to that goal. So you need to make sure that you can measure. So another one of your homework assignments is to write down what actions you're going to take when you leave here today to accomplish your goals. That might be not going to Starbucks. That might be getting with our representatives at Boya to talk about how you're going to increase what you're putting in your retirement. It could be anything, but I want you to think about what you're going to take from this class and what action you are going to take today to accomplish some goal. So that's part of your homework too. All right, and here's my contact information. So if you need help, if you want to come meet with me, if you want to call me, email me, feel free to use me as a resource. I'm certainly not a financial expert. We have financial experts, Steve, Brad, and his group. I am not, but I am more than willing to sit down with you and talk to you about your spending plan, ways to reduce expenses, if you just want to vent. Please feel free to call me. Let me say just a couple of other things before I wrap up. You all received an evaluation when you walked in. So before you leave, I need you to give this some careful consideration. Not necessarily about how you feel about me, but be honest. But down here where it says suggestions for future classes, please give that some thought and give us some ideas about what you would like to see with our financial wellness program. Our classes that we have slated for next year, we met just about a month ago, and that list will be coming out really shortly. We have some great classes lined up for next year. I am so excited. For example, we're going to do one right about tax time on finding those tax deductions that you might not think about off the top of your head. We're going to do classes on insurance. We're going to have some more classes on retirement and our technology. It is really, really exciting. And we got all of our ideas from the ideas that our students put on these suggestion boxes. So please feel free to be honest and be creative about what you want to see in our financial wellness program, and leave these when you get done. Jonna will collect these. Do you have any questions for me before you leave here today?
Amy, can I say one thing?
Yes, absolutely.
First of all, can y'all believe her enthusiasm?